What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Lockdown Universe, home of the bizarre, peculiar, and unheard of stories of UFO legend and paranormal lore. Welcome back, welcome back. Happy to be back. Hopefully, you guys are doing excellent and taking care of yourself. So, what a day, what a past 24 hours. Crazy stuff about David Wilcock coming out stating that he had taken himself out, a self involved shooting regarding David Wilcock. Very sorry to hear about this. It's so sad. Um, he was such a huge figure in alien disclosure, UFO disclosure, history. I mean, dude was on like every single media outlet. And we're going to talk about, the forces that kicked him out of being on television and being on all of these programs, and how he continued to push his narrative through his own YouTube channels and recordings, even though you haven't heard from him in some time. I have heard from him because he's posted stuff on his own YouTube channels and other channels for years. And he got older, looked different than he used to look, but it was still him. And people seem to think that just because you go off of a major media network, you're not around. Oh, he was around, believe me. So let's get into this mysterious death and the dark alliance that he stated. He actually wrote a letter about Gaia when he got kicked off, saying that there was a dark alliance within Gaia, which is a network that promotes health, that promotes fringe theory, that promotes all of these, interesting, weird stories that we're fascinated about, but not just weird, also like positive health. They used to be like just primarily a health organization network. So they do like yoga, they do like, exercises, meditations, and then it got into, more fringe stuff that we're interested in as paranormal researchers. So let's talk about this because this story is really weird, first of all, because let me see if I can get down here. Because it came out 2 days ago. Emery Smith, who took over for David Wilcock on the Cosmic Disclosure show, stated, that, hey, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry to hear about this. I'm so sorry, my little brother. I wish we could have gotten one last interview. I guess we won't ever be able to have that with you. And he saw him as a little brother. So what happened? Okay, so according to the story, and I'll get to like his history too and like kind of what happened. But Boulder County Communications received a 911 call at approximately 10:44 a.m. Monday regarding an unknown problem near the 1400 block of Ridge Road, northeast of town of Nederland, not the Netherlands, but Nederland, where Wilcock had lived. The emergency communication specialist suspected the caller was suffering from a mental health crisis. When officers arrived, they encountered a male armed with a weapon outside of Wilcock's house. Within minutes of the deputy's arrival, he used the weapon on himself and was pronounced deceased at the scene. No official confirmation came out from the family or the representatives. That's why we were all confused. We're like, is this conspiracy? Is this true? Is this not? There were posts all over social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, uh, TikTok, everywhere. Nobody knew what the hell the truth was. Did he die? A lot of, this is the craziest thing is he's had so many reports of him dying over the years that nobody knew what the truth was. So I withheld my own belief until Representative Anna Paulina Luna came out and said that he had passed away. No official confirmation from the family or representatives had come out. No posts from friends or acquaintances had confirmed that he had died, according to MSN. Now that was yesterday, but also today, U.S. Representative Anna Paulina Luna took to X and confirmed the death, writing that she was praying for his family and the millions of lives he affected. And what's interesting is that this is happening during a time where all of these UFO whistleblowers and engineers and historians and people involved in the UFO cover up are passing or either gone, missing off planet Earth, or they died, and they made it look like they had taken themselves out. Now, one other coincidence that's interesting is that a biographer about Wilcock, Winfrey, had died 2 days earlier, just 2 days earlier. A coincidence that basically just lit up the entire conspiracy community. Okay, so this timing is just really weird in the fact that Donald Trump wanted to let all of this information out. He commanded Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, to release all this UFO information, and now all these people are passing away. Now, I'm not going to talk about all the other people because everybody else is doing that. I want to talk about David Wilcock specifically because if the story is that the police actually showed up to his house and then they saw him actually take himself out in the moment, then that leaves out any influence. Well, not necessarily influence, but any belief that somebody else did it physically. Now, could they have pushed him to that point of taking himself out? 100%. There's weapons that are called the voice of God technology that puts basically thoughts into your head. It basically makes you be psychotic. It makes you believe your own thoughts. And the thoughts are not like some other external thought. It is a thought in your own voice in your head. That's how crazy this technology is. Now, I'm not saying that was used on him. I'm saying that's a possibility. What else could be a possibility? Could they have blackmailed him into saying, hey, if you talk about this anymore, we're going to bring legal action on you? And let's talk about that, because not only has he had, threats upon his life, but he's also had legal battles. Now, he had a divorce with his wife, which was extremely financially burdening on him and extremely emotionally burdening on him. He also got a bunch of harassment online, been harassed for years. That can take its toll on you. People, teenagers, adults, they take themselves out just because of harassment online, bullying online. But this dude has undergone public scrutiny for decades. Okay, this guy's been around since, been out and writing books since the 90s. He's had legal fallout with GAIA. They were trying to sue him. He had a long public silence. I mean, he wasn't out in on major news networks like GAIA or Netflix, but he was on his own YouTube channel. So, and they also stated that he had depression. So that's another piece of the puzzle that we have to look at. But I want to go back to kind of who he is and what doesn't make sense here, because if we look at what he stated in 2022, now granted that was a few years ago, 4 years ago now, that's a long, 4 years is a long time, but he stated that I am not suicidal. I'm not suicidal at all. I'm feeling good, so that, before years can, things can change in your life, right? So let's talk about the man and the legend here real quick. So he was actually born in 73. He spent 3 decades building one of basically the most distinctive and even polarizing careers in our UFO research world. He graduated from the University of New York with a BA in psychology. So did I. And not from the city of New York, though. And then he stated that his first direct contact with what he called a higher intelligence came through automatic writing at the age of 22. Now, see, a lot of people thought, or I don't know, I think he thought that he was the reincarnation. David Wilcock thought he was the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce is probably the most famous, if not the top 3 most famous automatic writers and psychics of all time. I mean, his psychic ability, when he put himself into a trance, to be able to figure out what people's medical issues were, mental health issues, finding, secret tech, um, even going into past life regression. This dude could do it all. There's been thousands of books written about this dude. Now, some might say that's crazy to think that you're the reincarnation of Edgar Casey, but we don't know. So from that point, he started writing at age 22 in 1995, and he never really looked back. He launched divinecosmos.com, which 1995. I mean, this is like the beginning of the internet, which became the hub for thousands of pages of free research on ancient civilizations. Why do you think ancient aliens wanted to bring him on? Because this dude had been doing it for decades already. So everybody knew who he was. Um, Not only was he doing ancient alien stuff, but he was doing consciousness science, and he was doing what's called the science of ascension. And that was really big, a huge part of his research was ascending, spiritually. How do we do that as a species? What do we have to do to achieve that? And a lot of people would say being of service to others more than 51%, because 50-50, more service to yourself means you're being selfish, more service to others meaning you're ascending spiritually. You're trying to help humanity. So he had a bunch of books that came out: The Source Field Investigations, The Synchronicity Key. They were both New York bestsellers, New York Times bestsellers. He had 3 published books together that contained over 2,000 academic references covering sacred science, extraterrestrial life, the deep state, and what he claimed was classified information at 35 levels above the President of the United States. So, how did David Wilcock obtain classified information at 35 levels above the President of the United States? Apparently, he had a whole bunch of whistleblowers that would come out to him. Now, keep in mind, when he created his website, he created it in 1995. This is the beginning of the internet. And when this is dial-up internet. So when you are in there first, you get a lot of people that want to communicate with you and tell their story and be anonymous. And back in 1995 in the internet, you could be anonymous. Now you really can't. So you got to watch what you say. So yeah, it is definitely possible that he got a lot of classified information from these individuals that wanted to come out and say, hey, this is what I know. I don't want to die with this information. I want people to know that UFOs are real. I want people to know that I worked on alien bodies, not me personally, but like guys like Emery Smith who did. People that showed up on Gaia, Randy Kramer, Emery Smith, Corey Good, David Wilcock was one of the first interviewers on Cosmic Disclosure. Tons and tons of guys came out and talked about their experiences in the secret space program and in spacecraft recovery, alien surgeries, so on and so forth. So how many times did David Wilcock appear on television? David Wilcock appeared in over 600 episodes on television in total. Most notably, of course, Ancient Aliens on the History Channel. Ancient Aliens is probably the biggest hit that the History Channel's ever had. Maybe Pawn Stars you could throw in there too. But there was a show before Ancient Aliens called UFO Hunters. That show was fantastic. I don't believe he was on that show. They would go on scene to where alien crashes might have happened, alien sightings might have happened, and that show was fantastic. And that show hit a breaking point when they talked about how there were hybrid humans inside of calves and cows, and the aliens were like breeding them. And the powers that be, the dark forces that be, shut that show off, and they came up with this Ancient Aliens show because having real aliens right now was freaking people out. I think to the point where the whoever it was, the government wanted to shut it down. And it was the highest ranking show on the History Channel at the time. So it was before Pawn Stars. So this was like 2008 to 2010, somewhere in there. And so, yeah, I mean, so let's go on. Let's move on. So, Ancient Aliens becomes a huge hit. He's on there all the time. He was also the lead in Above Majestic, which was a documentary, became a #1 documentary hit film. So, it was a huge footprint for people even outside of like, UFO interests. People were interested in this Above Majestic because it sounded like it had a lot of information, and it did. It had a ton of people on there. And online, this guy David Wilcock was unbelievably far-reaching. He had 2 million people that watched his documentary, The 2012 Enigma, and by 2019, his name appeared in the title of nearly 6 million YouTube videos. So when you have a researcher that's this high level, I'm talking about one of the highest levels you could get to. Sorry, it becomes he becomes a high profile figure. When you become a high profile figure, people watch what happens to you. And when they say, "Okay, this guy took himself out," the question is why. At this time, when all these people are disappearing, did he get information from somebody in the know that somebody was coming for him? Did somebody tell him that there's an alien invasion coming? He didn't want to deal with it. Did somebody tell him that they were going to pick him up and put him in prison and he was going to spend the rest of his life there? And he was like, I'm not doing that. I don't know. These are the questions. I mean, you don't just do it for no reason. There's a lot of reasons. And this guy was deep into whistleblower testimony, government cover up, government conspiracy, multi-planetary solar system conspiracy, and ascension. I don't know. Maybe he thought, this was the way to ascension. I mean, I'm not saying that that's the case, but I mean, there's lots of theories as to how to ascend. You can just look at multiple cults that you know tried to jump on the Hale-Bopp comet. There were cults that thought that if they did certain things, they would allow them to ascend to a higher level. I don't know, but I think for him, I think it could have been something pushing him. Something pushing it. There's lots of technology, like we talked about with the skull, the voice of God technology. But let's go a little bit deeper. So the Gaia fallout and the Dark Alliance. So he worked with Gaia for a couple years. I think, well, it says 5.5 years. So I remember watching him on Cosmic Disclosure. He was only on there for, well, maybe he was on there for a few more years. Gaia actually cut out all of his interviews and all of his episodes after they parted ways with him. His episodes were like the best. He was the best interviewer. He asked the questions, that we wanted to ask as viewers. And I mean, these interviewers that they have now are great too, but they're not. I mean, he had so much information that came into him from 1995 that he would double blind confirm information from these whistleblowers. So he would gather information from one person, write it all down or record it, and then when he was interviewing another person, he would never lead the question with the information that he obtained before. He would have them present their information and hear what they had to say. And if it was similar to or exactly the same as the other person he interviewed, then he could double confirm that this information is true. He could confirm if these people knew each other or did not know each other. Hopefully they didn't, so that this information could be double blinded confirmed. But Wilcock was the face of Gaia. I mean, he was the face of the television. He was like the main guy. He was the poster child. He was new age. This was a brand new streaming platform. He hosted Cosmic Disclosure along with Corey Good. A lot of people, don't believe Corey Good. Maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. But that's not the point. Corey Good is his own entity. David Wilcock is his own entity. So Corey Good claimed to be a whistleblower from the secret government space program. The show was a super big hit. And then in July 2018, a resignation letter started circulating around all of the UFO blogs. It blew up the show basically, right? In the letter, Wilcock claimed he was furious that the show was being forced to promote a Gaia program called Ancient Civilization, which is interesting. He alleged that it was involved in Luciferian activities. He wrote that these connections to Luciferianism meant that he could become a target for the Pizzagate conspiracy theorists who he warned were murderously angry about anything tied to that label. So he didn't want to get connected to the Pizzagate issue. So these accusations were explosive. Specifically, Wilcock accused Gaia and its employees of being Luciferians engaged in or promoting uh, abuse, human sacrifice, cannibalism, and genocidal aspirations. Damn, that's crazy. That is crazy. So that's the letter that was going around on the internet. Whether or not that's true or not, let's find out. So they state that now in February 2019, Wilcock issued a public apology on Gaia television, acknowledging that the letter had been taken out of context, which was effectively an admission that he had written it. So, did he write a bigger letter that explained why he was talking about these things, or was that his full intent? So, he said that he wrote that these accusations are false and without merit and apologized to Gaia and its employees and the broader Gaia community. But this is where the Dark Forces narrative comes in. So when Wilcock didn't just apologize and move on, he reframed the entire disaster as an attack on him personally, that there was a dark alliance that had been violently resisting his work on cosmic disclosure. Now he was there for 5.5 years. So if this violent resistance was pushing against him, you got to wonder like why he didn't come out with it earlier. But maybe he was just gathering information and trying to understand what this dark alliance was about. So it included personal takeout threats, right? They were threatening him, and then he received um, a July 2017 warning that if he continued to host the show, he would be taken out. He described the coordinated harassment, online attacks, and slanderous campaigns as a divide and conquer operation run by a force operating entirely outside of Gaia. So now he's blaming a group that's outside of Gaia instead of Gaia directly. So they stated that this wasn't even a new concept for Wilcock, that the Dark Alliance was something he had been referencing for years. So, when it comes to groups, we don't know their name, right? If they're an undercover agency, not like the alphabet soup agencies, but we're talking about like an undercover, we'd have to just align them with a name. So he gave them a Dark Alliance name. And he said it's just a group of people that are working to suppress disclosure, silence truth tellers, and keep humanity from ascending. Now, isn't this interesting? Because now that he's gone, there's all these people that have been disappeared or taken themselves out as well recently. And this is weird because we have the president that's saying, "Hey, I want everybody to come out. I want everybody to come out and tell the UFO story." Meanwhile, the people that possibly could come out are being disappeared. And they've been threatened before. People like Jonathan Waygant, who saw an alien ship while he was a Marine, was threatened while he was taken out of that area on a black helicopter with guys in black camo suits, saying that, "Hey, we can dump you right out this door right now. Nobody will find you. You'll be in the jungle and eaten, and you'll be gone." So our own forces will threaten our own forces with death if they don't go along with the agenda that they have created, which is to silence the UFO community, silence the UFO phenomenon, right? But there's so many people out there talking about it. It's crazy, right? So there was a huge legal ramification for him as well. Gaia and Corey Good um, had a dispute that eventually became a full RICO lawsuit, civil lawsuit. Corey Good alleged racketeering, defamation. The legal proceedings pulled in Wilcock. Wilcock's name and statements into the center of this huge mess. Um, and intellectual property rights, and it dragged on for years. And I think that there's two definite different entities here. Corey Good, who's a little bit questionable in my mind. I really wanted to believe him at first, but then when he went into court, he kind of alluded to the fact that some of these things are things that he created, but you couldn't tell if he was talking about intellectual property, like this is stuff that happened to him and he's giving it, but Gaia took it from him and he's suing him, or if he actually just fictionally made this stuff up. So I don't include Corey Good 100% with David Wilcock, because David Wilcock has tons of people in his network that he interviewed over the years. So the cruel irony is that a man who built this a huge world view around humanity ascending above conflict and darkness found himself trapped in one of these legal battles and one of the more ugly feuds of a network that was trying to promote all of this information out, and another individual who may or may not have been making things up. So that's the wild thing to me, and it's sad, but the real fact of the matter is that we have a great individual who did a ton of work in the UFO community, gave his life to the UFO community, and why he ended his life, we won't know now unless there's information in his house, and or a letter or something that comes out. I mean, that would be great to know why. Why did he do this? Why did he choose to do this? Um, a lot of people don't leave letters behind. Some people do, but a lot of people they're so inside of their own mind that leaving a letter behind is kind of like the last thing they're really thinking about, even though people deserve an explanation. His family, not us. He could do, his choice is his choice, but his family deserves to know, what was going on. Um, if he was really in danger, it would be good to know too. Now, could there be a cover up with that? If he was really in danger, could there have been a cover up? Maybe he did write a letter. Maybe it got covered up. Maybe it got blocked out. Maybe it got blocked out by the internet. The powers that be that have AI and can just continually search the internet for information that they don't want to get out, they can block it. Now you could say, "Oh no, that's not possible." Well, let me tell you. Back in the 1950s, when the government and other businesses communicated by ticker tape that came across through telephone lines across into an actual piece of tape that had a message on it. You might not know about that, but some of us older folks do. The FBI, when a ticker tape was coming across a news desk about a crashed UFO, the FBI sent out a message right after that. So they got the message and they're like, "Oh, we should publish this." The FBI said, "You will not publish anything about this, and you will shred this evidence." Isn't that interesting? If they can monitor ticker tape telephone lines back in the 50s, you bet your ass they can monitor telephone lines and the internet in the 2020s, especially 2026, especially with all the tools that they have. And this isn't new info. This is old info. This is Edward Snowden info, but from back in the day. So, what do you think? What do you think really happened to David Wilcock? Do you think that he found something out and he personally took it upon himself to take himself out, or do you think that there was some sort of weapon or some kind of push from an alien entity, a whistleblower, or something else that pushed him to do this kind of against his will? Hopefully, we find out the truth. This is the very early stages. This is the very beginning. It only happened 2 days ago. So, prayers up for him, for his family, and it's a very sad day for the UFO community, especially with Nick Pope's recent passing, too. Just the storyline's getting real weird, and you got to keep your eyes open to all this information. But I definitely wanted to make a podcast about this, bring it to your attention, let you know David Wilcock had passed, and the questions remain as to why it happened and whether or not he was pushed by any certain entity or any certain person or piece of information. This is the important information that we have to ask, and this is the important information that we need to know so that we protect ourselves and protect the freedoms that we have, especially the First Amendment. Right? All right. I love you guys. Take care of yourselves. Stay positive. Keep your white light around you. Focus on positivity. Follow through on your hobbies and your goals and your dreams, whatever they may be. Life's short, man. Life's short. I almost kicked the bucket the other day. So do what you want to do. Do life. Don't feel like you're so obligated to like grind yourself to the stone, man. To the bone with a stone, I guess. I love you. And love is around. Love is around. So embrace the love, get rest, drink water, stay healthy, and take care of yourselves. And continue to question the universe around you. Until next time, guys, take care of yourselves. Lockdown Universe out. Peace.